Hi folks, welcome to your review for your Human Resources Management midterm. Just so that you have a little idea of what the test will be like, it'll have a couple of different parts to it. You'll have some short answer questions and you'll also have a case question. So what we decided to do is just to give you a couple of short cases to work on just to allow you to practice. And the test date, again, there are different sections of the course running, so you should double check that with your instructor, but it would also be posted in your eLearn course and in your learning plan, so you can check there. Your test will take place during class, and your class is 2 hours. So, by the time we set up and collect all the papers at the end, it should probably run about an hour and 30 minutes. In some cases, if we think we might need a little bit more time, then maybe we'll give an extra 10 minutes. So it could be up to 1 hour and 40 minutes, but plan on an hour and a half and make sure that you're there on time for the test. So don't think, well, I got an hour and a half, I can come in a half an hour late and right to the end. We want you there at the beginning as soon as possible because you never know what happens, eh? And the test format again is short answer and case. So what we thought we would do is give you a couple of examples of some case questions. And again, the case could be worth anywhere from 25 marks to 35 marks. And we have a little sample below. So you really should give this one your best shot. Just to make sure that you're understanding the questions now and what a response should look like. Now, we've just given you point form solutions, okay? And we will explain what we mean by each of the responses in the answer. But we would expect that even if you're using point form in your solutions, that you would give full explanation so that we're not guessing at what you mean. Okay, so here's your first little case. It's on XYZ Company. And what we want you to be mindful of is in any case, not just the XYZ one, but in any case, make sure you keep your discussions relevant to the course content and not make it totally based on, what you think your opinion is. Make sure it's based on HR practice. So in any case, we have a company here, XYZ. They've been growing, which is great. They manufacture radios and power amplifiers, and they've recently expanded their business to manufacture transformers for the broadcast and communications industry. There's been great demand for their products, and it's created new opportunities for new products and diversification. It says during the years, XYZ was a leading supplier of transformers for the electrical and electronics industries. Now they had expanded their focus to the U.S. and international markets, and they want to become an international transformer supplier. They formed several strategic alliances with the U.S. and European companies to broaden their market, and they hired you in May 2010 as their HR assistant. Part of your role at that time was to keep their human resources information system up to date, and the database captures the training, skills, and development needs of its employees. Here we are now, March the 2nd, 2013. The economy is a little bit on the downswing. Business is lagging a bit. One of your major competitors was unable to pay their debt to the bank and other creditors, and they had to close their operations in Europe and Canada. The closure has been a blessing for your company and its employees because orders increased by 10% over the last year, and the company now needs to hire new sales reps and production supervisors. So the first question here related to the case is worth 31 marks, and again, this is just a sample of the marking scheme. All right, so you can get an idea of the way we can give you a little bit of information and then break up the case into some subsections so that you have something to respond to. You are now, since you've been there in 2010, you've now risen and you're now the Chief Human Resources Officer. So Stephen Biggs is the Director of Marketing and Sales. He called you to a meeting because he now needs to hire new sales reps. He needs 4. He needs 1 to service Western Canada, 1 in Quebec, 1 in Ontario, and 1 to service the Eastern U.S. Stephen wants to hire his reps by June the 1st, 2013. The recruitment budget is set at $2,500. Stevens contacted you asking if you could assist him in the selection process. It's now March the 2nd, 2013, and in the meantime, Stephen also expressed concern that the job description for the sales rep may not be up to date, and he wants to make sure that they were updated before new people were hired. So your questions are, what are 2 recruitment methods that you would consider first to fill the vacancies? Consider the budget. You've only got $2,500 and the time constraints that were mentioned above. Now you remember he wants to hire his reps by June the 1st. It's now March the 2nd, so you don't have a lot of time. So you want to find 2 recruitment methods that might be quick and also inexpensive because of your low budget. So the first thing I'd consider is the HRIS, or the HR Information System, or HRIS, because don't forget the case did say that you were developing that when you started, and it was capturing training skills and development needs of the employees that you currently have. So you may be able to identify people internal to the company who might be able to fill the needs. That would be a good thing to do because, again, it at least would be an individual who's already familiar with the company. So they already know a little bit about the customers, the products, the services, that kind of thing. So it could cut down on training time as well. Company website is also a good way because, again, we know that there's been a downsizing and one of your competitors is now out of business. They may be checking the websites of competitors like yourself, and they might see an opportunity and apply. So that would save you a little bit of time and, of course, some money. So take any one of these 2 recruitment methods that you selected and identify one advantage and one disadvantage. Now, I didn't know what one you'd select, so I gave you an advantage and disadvantage of both. So if we're using the HR Information System, or HRS, one of the advantages is that it's quick and efficient and it leverages the current human capital. So again, we can use it to help us find people who are inside the company, who are already qualified in some respects to take on our challenge, our sales rep challenge. And the nice thing is that you again would be finding people who are familiar with your products and services and may already have some training that might be relevant to the sales rep job. The disadvantage is that it would be limited only to internal people, so you wouldn't have a chance to see what was outside of the organization if you wanted a comparison. Company website has the advantage that it's cost effective because you don't have to place an ad anywhere, whether it's on another online site or in a trade magazine or a newspaper. It can generate, however, a lot of volume of applicants, so you might have to spend a lot of time pre-screening, which might take a little bit of time, so that's a disadvantage. Now, what 2 other methods could you use to recruit for the position? You could use a government website because, again, they're free, and don't forget, you have a budgetary constraint, all right? The other thing that you could do or a reason why you might want to choose the government website is that you did have a major competitor who's now downsizing their business. They closed their doors, so a lot of their people might be on employment insurance or needing to apply for EI, so they'd have access to the government website and they would be able to see who's looking for what. So that might be a good place. The local newspaper might be a good place. It's not national due to the budget and time frames. So again, we didn't want to put it out to a national newspaper like the Globe and Mail or anything because we thought we don't want people from Vancouver applying if we're here in Ontario, right? So we're trying to get people who are local to us. And again, we might also want to go on referral because don't forget, we have sales reps who may know other reps who are very good people. So we can get good candidates from employees who may already know some of our sales reps who are being laid off. And one of the disadvantages, I suppose, of that one, now that I'm thinking about it, may be that they bring in people only in their own likeness, so that might be a negative, right? But again, you can screen for that. right, in your screening processes. So again, a referral might be a good option for you here too. Now, if you were let's say, for example, you were trying to determine what selection criteria you might use for the sales reps, we've asked you to identify 3. Well, again, some selection criteria you have to determine in the education area. You know, you might want them to have a college diploma or university degree, but you might want them to have experience mostly in sales and marketing in terms of their educational background, right? Because you want to get a good blend of not just the practical experience, but theoretical experience, which you would get from a community college or university degree where there's specialty in marketing and sales. You'd probably want them to have some level of sales experience, and why you would want to have that is to assess, they would have an ability to assess the needs of the customer. They may not totally understand your product, but at least they would know how to close the sale. They might have some experience in selling, right, and negotiating with customers. You'd also want them to have strong communication skills. And again, the advantage to that would be they could communicate effectively, verbally, and in writing. So they would be able to write reports. They would know how to conduct themselves in meetings, that kind of thing. Now, the other question we ask you relevant to the case is, after the recruitment process is complete, you have 300 resumes for the job. What 2 steps would you take to screen the applicants? So again, you want to make sure that you don't spend, now that you've gone through all the trouble of getting all these applicants or these people interested in your job, right? You need to make sure that you screen them down, right? So what would you do? Well, the first thing you would do is you would have to compare the resumes to the job description requirements. So you want to weigh out the must-haves, which your job description says you need to have, versus what the resume says that might be nice-to-haves. So again, you're looking here to find out, although these people may come to you with a lot of experience, what are the minimum requirements for the job? And those who don't meet those minimum requirements would be screened out. Right? The other thing you want to be careful of here is that you don't, what we say, overhire. So in other words, you don't want to take people that are overly qualified, because you may spend time with them as part of the selection process, and then you might find out at the end, if you make them an offer, they may not accept it because they're overqualified for your job. The other thing you might do to screen the applicants is maybe conduct a telephone interview or some kind of personality kind of testing, just to sense what their personality is like on the phone. And again, just to see what kind of, and again, you might do the personality assessment through personality testing as well, right? The reason why you might want to do a phone interview too is because, don't forget, a lot of these sales reps would be communicating with their customers by phone, not just by email, right? And again, you might also decide to do some personality testing as part of your screening of the applicants, only because, that would allow you to see who might best fit your needs from a communications perspective, from a situational perspective. So you might present them with scenarios that they might encounter and how would they handle them. And obviously, people who give you the best responses are the people that you might want to interview, right? So now, let's go on to F. It says a list of qualified candidates has now been narrowed from 300 down to 10. The Director of Marketing and Sales wants you to set up a panel interview. So who might you include on that panel interview and justify your selection? Well, the first thing you always do is you always want an HR person there. Why? Because this will ensure that the process remains free from bias with respect to human rights issues. It'll make sure that people each have a turn to answer the questions or to ask the questions, those kinds of things. So you want to make sure that the process is run efficiently, effectively, and within the legal parameters of the HR profession. You'd certainly want a direct supervisor of the new employee just to make sure that they can assess their technical knowledge and to make sure that they're a good fit with the existing salespeople. You might want a colleague or a peer just to see how well they would fit with customers, how well the colleague, the other sales rep, thinks they would be accepted by their peers, and just overall fit with company employees. Again, you might want to have the administrative assistant, who is maybe more of an office assistant in the department, again, to help assess the fit, okay, with the organization and with the staff in the department. Now, Identify a selection test that you think would be directly relevant to hiring the sales rep, and state any assumptions you make, and describe the test you recommend and what it would measure, or describe what the test you recommend would measure. Well, emotional intelligence might be a test that you want to administer. It would tell you, give you an idea of the candidate's ability to monitor their own emotions, to guide their thoughts and activities. So would they stay in control when they're trying to sell to customers, troubleshoot product problems, and they wouldn't just get all exercised and nervous and upset when they face problems. They'd actually solve them with the customer, with the technical areas, with engineering, those kinds of people, right? And again, you could do a personality test, as we said before. It would measure whether or not the person was introverted or extroverted. Are they stable? Are they motivated to do well in their chosen career path? Are they sociable? All of these things are important for good salespeople. Okay, now let's look at H. Identify 2 costs that would be incurred by the company if they selected an applicant that was unqualified for the job. Well, obviously, one cost would be the cost to recruit, select, and to train for the first time or the second time, right? So what we mean by that is, say, for example, we have to terminate somebody, then we'd hire a new person, right? So we would have had to gone through the recruitment, selection, and training process twice. Once to hire the first person, and then if we terminate them, again to hire the second person. We'd also have lost sales, perhaps. So maybe there were sales that we lost because the customers weren't happy with the sales reps, right? So we might have been losing sales and we didn't know we were, right? There might also be sales that we didn't get because maybe people weren't happy with the reps, right? So we have to take that into account. And there also would be legal costs. So if we had to terminate any of the reps, we might have to pay them severance. We'd have to pay them for any untaken vacation, those kinds of things, right? So now in by the way, in some of these questions, I might ask you for 2 costs. I gave you 3 here, but just to show you that there's more than 2 in some of these cases, right? So we wouldn't ask you for more than you could possibly identify. Okay, now we want you to describe 2 methods that you might use to go about updating the job descriptions, because Stephen Biggs did say that he wanted to update the descriptions, right? Well, the one thing you'd want to do is interview the employees and the manager of the department just to get more information on the job. Okay, it may be a faster way to get information on the job if you interview them directly. You can also do a questionnaire, right? So you can email them or drop off a questionnaire that they can complete on the job. And when they return it, you can review it. And again, it would be an inexpensive way to do it, right? There's no need to coordinate meetings, so it might save you a little bit of time there. The only negative, of course, is that it might take you a little bit longer to get it back, whereas if you can get some time and get an interview with the employees or the managers who are in the sales rep position, you might get that information faster. All right. Now, let's say your new sales reps, they're going to need some training. All right. So what 2 things would you do to conduct a needs analysis? Don't forget, a needs analysis is what we do in the training area when we want to find out what kinds of things we need to provide in our training program. So we're trying to focus here on where our sales reps might be weak, okay, and develop training around it. But we just want to know, how are you going to determine the kinds of things that might need to go into a training program? So you need to do a needs analysis. First thing you might want to do is review the job description, because the job description is going to give you an idea of what these sales reps need to know how to do, right? And we can use that to determine what they need to know on the job and bring that into our training program, right? So we can talk with the new reps and their managers as well. So maybe we don't look at the description, maybe we can just talk to the new reps and the managers, and we can find out from them what areas they think the reps, either they themselves or the managers, feel the reps are weak in, and where do the reps need improvement. These are areas that should be covered in the training program. We can already test the reps too to see what they already know. So again, we might find that there's things that they're weak in just by testing them. So say, for example, we might want to do some computer testing to see where the reps are weak on maybe product knowledge. So we might want to say, well, do they know enough about the product, right? So training can address those weak areas, right? Testing can also address how well the sales reps can close the sale, negotiate with customers, right? So again, we might see weaknesses there, and we might want to incorporate some training elements in our program that would address those needs. So that's basically your first little case. So we tried to give you a little bit of a, that would maybe be worth 4 marks, right? So you'll notice here we ask you to name and to describe. So you're naming the method, and then down here you're describing. So this is where your descriptions are. So you noticed even here we identify costs, we describe them a bit, we identify a selection test, we want you to describe the test as well. So you state here and then you describe here. So make sure that if we ask you to list or to name something, if we also ask you to describe it, that you show us that you understand what it means. So that's basically some of the responses that we would have expected in our first question related to that case. The next question that we have also relates to the case, and we'll cover that in our next video.